that we become better stewards. But I've been, for a minute, you guys know, teaching and preaching is time out for church folk, right? Kingdom folk who believe in God, not to have so many financial issues. We have to establish ourselves in such a way, right, that we're being great stewards of what God allows us to have. So they're going to walk through some things. I want to introduce, and those of you on mute, you can snap it up. I want to introduce Brother Marcus Johnson and Brother Garrison Warren. Come on, y'all can snap it up. But do me a favor, just before I turn it over to them, I'm going to pray. Hit that share button on Facebook. You tapped in and you weren't able to get into the Zoom link. And if you're on Zoom and you're on Facebook, share with your friends, right? We want our community to be enriched financially. We want our community to be solid when it comes to money matters. This should be the last season, right, where we're having to put together and piece together funerals for folk and piece together, right, living month to month and check to check. Piece together, right, what it looks like to have a financial forecast, a portfolio. These ideas are to be close to us, and we ought to be great stewards with managing what God allows. Amen. I see you, Sister Gracie. This is going to be an impact to you, and it won't be the last time we do this, but we need to get the ball rolling. So let me pray, and I'm going to turn it over to them, and we'll have a wonderful one of engagement about growing financially. God, we thank you. We thank you for this opportunity that we get a chance to dive deeper, Lord, in some practical life application stuff where we will grow and be able to see you bigger, see ourselves better, and manage the resources that you allow us from every assignment, every occupation, every job that you allow us to walk on. We thank you now, even for the brothers that will guide this lesson, guide these teachings, give them strength, give them wisdom, and give them inspiration, Lord, to share with us jewels, things that we can tuck away and hold for later. And even ask the questions, Lord, make this a very informative lesson, Lord. Make it impactful for our lives. And may we all be the better for it. We thank you. It is in Jesus' name we pray and we praise. Somebody shout hallelujah. And without further ado, I want to turn it over to Brother Marcus Johnson and Brother Garrison Warren. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. How's everybody? We're gonna try to make tonight impactful, but also educational, but at the same time, kind of make it interactive, as much as interactive as we can do. So if you got questions, please don't hesitate to let us know, and we're gonna kind of get through it. But again, my name is Marcus Johnson. I am the managing partner of Johnson Capital Planning. I founded this company in 2017 after spending numerous years on Wall Street, and so I wanted to figure out how I could be impactful for my community, give some of that knowledge back to people who look like me, and create a business around it as well. And then I have my good guy here, Mr. Garrison Warren, who is a vice president here, and I'll kind of give some of his background.
Well, my name is Garrison Warren, Atlanta native, Tennessee State University graduate. I came from the banking industry. I worked at Regions Bank. I learned a lot there, but then I joined Marcus 2 years ago, and it feels good to be able to really impact the community, especially those who are like us. So we're gonna tag team this thing, and hopefully y'all enjoy it.
And if you could make me a host or allow me to share my screen.
We can do that. Pam, if you can allow Marcus to be the host, and that way he'll be able to give us some insight. Pastor Tori, good to see you on here while they're doing that.
All right, everybody see? All right, sounds good. So we're going to dive right into this. And so what I like to do is called the 5 pillars of money management, right? And so we'll go through and talk about individually what those 5 pillars are. But we wanted to add a little sauce, right? So what we've been finding out is that, sometimes you talk to financial guys and this can go over your head. So we wanted to make it where it's digestible to people who aren't seeing this stuff on every day, right? So we're gonna have different terms that we start calling this stuff versus, some of our counterparts are making it real stuffy. So we're gonna take all the stuff away and we're gonna make it where it's relatable to you, but also giving you some value where you can utilize this stuff in your life. And at the end, we'll have our contact information, because I will say this, right? We are, a black-owned company, and the way we stay there is not by you congratulating us on being black-owned, but you actually supporting us and being very intentional, right, on how and remembering our original intent on making this thing happen, right? So I got the good words come to me through Garrison that was what the word was, and so I wanted to use that in this presentation as well. So let's move this thing forward. So the first pillar we're gonna call financial plan, and instead of calling it a financial plan, we're gonna call it an FP. And I'm gonna let Garrison kind of go through this for you.
Yeah, so this is kind of like the income part, but with FP, essentially, Pastor Murray, you mentioned it earlier, but it's simply the process of determining how an individual can meet their life goals through their proper management of resources. You got to see the bigger picture of what we want to do and what our money is going to do. And also, we say this a lot all the time, especially to our clients. You got plenty of dollars, you got plenty of future.
So, with that, we want to view our financial plan as the same way we would view a chessboard, right? We want to make sure we're able to see the whole board, right? So a lot of times people think when you're talking about their finances, they only think about it as a one-fold, right? I can only do this with my money, right? So one of the main things that I want to tell people today is that you can do multiple things with your money, right? So it's kind of like if you was going to the gym and the only thing that you wanted to work out was your arms. Your arms is going to look really good, but what about the rest of you, right? We got to work out. We can do more than one thing. And so we can do the same things with our money. So let's just make sure that we're able to see the full, complete board.
Numbers don't lie. We always tell people take the emotions out of it. The numbers are the numbers. So this is just an example of what we can do for you. This is an example of our full financial plan. As you can see, it gets pretty detailed, but this is just an example of how we can really dive deep and get you where you're trying to go.
And to add to that, so what a financial plan is, again, is making sure that we're looking at the bigger picture. And so what this is kind of emulating is saying, okay, if you came to us and you started to reveal your financial picture, right? And so what we want to do is get a clear look at what you're doing, all of the assets that you have, right? Because our true goal is to try to figure out how can we increase your net worth. And the way we do that is look at what is your assets, right? So what are you having in banking? What are your investable assets? What does your real estate look like? And then what is your debt, right? Because at the end of the day, our whole goal is to increase your net worth. And how do we do that? By increasing your income, flatlining your expenses, and then investing the difference, right? And so what this shows us is that if you came in and we started to look at, everything that you've done, and you came back and you said, look, I want to accomplish X, Y, and Z. So most of the time people come in here and say, look, I just want my money to make money for me, right? And then that's it. But what we try to do is get more specific on what you want your money to do. Whether that's, I want to retire. I want to buy a new house. I want to start a business, right? And so what we're going to be able to do based on your current situation is give you a number. And so what we say is if you come back in and that number is under 75%, then we have work to do. We got to figure out where your gaps are. And so that's what this is showing you, right? So we'll be able to come in and say, all right, there's 3 places you can put your money, which we'll get into it a little bit later, but you'll see under this tax allocation summary where you have the different assets listed, and we'll kind of talk about that tonight. But we'll get up. This is like your high-level overview, and that's why we say the numbers don't lie.
All right, so once again from Sunday, great word, Pastor Murray, but you got to remember your original intent. So think about focusing your thoughts. Think with money management, start with mindset shift. You have to look at it differently because this is what I've experienced, especially working in banking. First branch I worked at was on Clarksville Highway. So I've seen a lot of things, and I got a promotion, moved off West End, and it's just a difference in how different demographics view money. I'm sure y'all see that with whether it's in relationships, spouses, or just in general, but you have to shift your mindset, especially if you're trying to really accomplish your goal. So you gotta make sure you have a good relationship with money. I mean, a lot of times in the black community, you know, I'll be honest, we don't talk about money. Like we just really never know what someone has until either they pass away or you know something tragic happens. I believe in being proactive. You know, we have to change the mindset, and let's just start talking about these conversations about money earlier, so that it's not a surprise later. So you gotta make sure you have a good relationship with money. I mean, I get it. Money is, you know, it's taboo. It gives us anxiety, stress.
And a good relationship comes from making good decisions with our money, right?
Exactly.
And so every time we get a dollar, you know, the first thing we can't do is just have that money going out, right? You know, I think that they talk about all the time how quick the black dollar leaves once we touch it, right? And so having a good relationship with our money is going to help us shape our decisions around how we're using our money. Because the thing about money that I tell people all the time is that money is a tool, and how we properly use that tool and manage that tool is going to have an indication on what type of lifestyle we live and what type of, you know, retirement outcome we're going to have when we start talking about that conversation. So let's just make sure that we're not scared of it. We understand that it's a tool, and we just have to understand that we have to use it properly in order to achieve whatever goals that we're trying to achieve. So with that being said, instead of calling this a budget, we're going to call it a spending plan, because everybody on this call knows how to spend money. If you don't know how to spend money, please teach me how, right? Because, I mean, everybody on here knows how to spend money, right? So we're going to call it a spending plan from now on. No more budgets, right? No more budgeting. We spending plan. So Proverbs 15:22 says this: without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed, right? So that's why we're here right now, is to kind of help you advise you on what are the steps that we should be taking. And so I like to start with this. The first part of the presentation is always a little slower, because we got to set the tone on everything else that we're going to talk about, right? Everybody wants to come in and talk about all of the good stuff, right? Talk to me about the stock market. No, well, let's take a step back, right? We got to build that foundation before we start getting into what everybody wants to talk about, right? And so it starts with a spending plan. And so basically what a spending plan is an estimation of your revenue and expenses over a specified period of time, and is usually compiled and reevaluated on a periodic basis. All that is fancy words of saying, look, I need to know what I got coming in, and I need to know what's going out, and we need to reevaluate that. And so what I normally tell people is that you will want to create what we call a PFS, which is a personal financial statement. And so really what that is looking at the last 3 months of what you got coming in and what you got going out. And so, you know, financial advisors try to make this complicated, but really there's only two things you can do, right? It's either we're going to cut expenses or we're going to make more money, or both, right? And so what we find is that a lot of our clients come in here and they are paying for things that they didn't realize they was paying for, right? So especially when we're talking about a 2-income household, where why is the wife and the husband both paying for Netflix? What sense does that make? Y'all in the same house. Well, why are we doing this, right? Why do you have Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, right, and Pandora? These are all subscriptions for music. Pick one, right? These little savings is going to start putting more money, right? And so here's the formula that I'll give you. Pay yourself, tithe, and automate your savings, right? And so the reason why I tell people to automate their savings is because it's hiding away from you. And I want to throw a caveat on this, because generally when I say, everybody on here, I got a savings account, if I ask right now, everybody's going to say, yeah, I got a savings account. But I'm going to say this: if your savings account is so accessible to your checking, and the first time something happens, all you do is go from your savings to your checking and just do a transfer, you don't have a savings. You have a double checking. That's what you have, right? So we got to get away from this double checking. And look, I can't feel the energy because I can't see y'all, but I hope that's hitting you. I really do hope that's hitting you, that we got to move away from this double checking, okay? So here's the formula. We're going to track our expenses for the next 3 months, right? And there's so many softwares. If you don't have anything, come see me. If you don't have anything, come see me. We'll help you with that, right? So we'll track your expenses. Then we're going to cut in areas that we need to. And then we're going to build you a real plan. But we want to be realistic. And so when I say be realistic about your plan, if you come to my office and you say, look, my main goal is to be debt-free, which that's a whole nother conversation. I could build a whole presentation around becoming debt free and a whole bunch of that stuff, right? But that's not what this is for tonight. And you only make $40,000 and you got $180,000 of debt, and you come to me and say, I'm trying to pay that off in 1 year. I'm gonna say you're not being realistic, right? So I hate to hurt people's feelings, right? But it's not about feelings; it's about the numbers, right? We said numbers don't lie. So we got to be realistic in whatever our goals are, because if you only got $40,000 coming in, you ain't taking care of 160 in a year. It's just not happening. I don't care what Dave Ramsey told you, all right? It's not happening. So be realistic with our plan. So that's what we're gonna call our spending plan. So let's revisit, all right? Track our expenses. We're gonna cut expenses in areas that we need to cut, and then we're gonna be realistic on what we want our money to do. Because our main goal is to increase your income, flatline your expenses, and invest the difference. The problem is that once people start making more money, they increase their income, but they also increase their expenses, right? And then they don't invest the difference; they spend the difference, right? So that's where the biggest issue comes in, is that we're spending the new money that we're making. All right, so let's go on to pillar 2, right? And so instead of calling this retirement planning, I like for people to get realistic with it. So we put a number in it, right? So I'm gonna call this 2056, and I based it on me. So in 2056, I'll be 67 years old. So that's what I based this on. So for you, you figure out how many years you got to 67, because that's technically the full retirement age right now, right? And so, what is retirement planning? It is the process of preparing for life after work, right? Now, sometimes people, they might say, look, I love what I'm doing, right? I'm going to work forever. That's great, right? But you work because you have. Are you working because you have to, or are you working because you want to? Those are two completely different things, right? And so here are some questions to start asking yourself when we start to think about retirement. So when do you want to retire? How much will you need? What will you do once you get to retirement? Because I know you're just not going to be, just sitting at the house watching, Price is Right. What are we doing, right? What's going to be your primary source of income, right? This is a big one. I didn't want to spend too much time on this, but is there a plan for long-term care? And I'm starting to see that more and more. And the reason why is because people are starting to live longer. A study came out in 2022 that said, on average, a 65-year-old person is going to spend about $315,000 from the time they retire till they die on health care alone. So just think about that number, $315,000, right? How much money do I have saved to live on? And now we're talking about $315,000 of that might be having to go to pay for living costs for health care. So we need to make sure that we're having a plan around long-term care. But that, like I said, this could be a whole segment in itself about that. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but that is a problem. And then one more question is, well, actually two, how much money of the money that I have saved going to be tax-free? That's a big one too. Right? How much tax-free money am I going to have? And then the last thing is when should I take Social Security? And so, we start forming our questions around that. We can start kind of building out the framework and what your retirement plan should look like. And so here's this. Another statistic came out in 2023 that said about 83% of people worry that their retirement savings may not be enough to live on. And why is that? There's a couple different reasons. Number one, people are living longer. Number two, inflation. Right, which we'll talk about inflation in a couple slides, down, right? But 83% of people are worried that they're going to run out of money. Just think about that, right? And so think about what you're doing currently. And part of the reason why people are feeling like they're going to run out of money is because they're not doing the proper planning. And so I normally tell people that retirement planning is not a do-it-yourself project. Have somebody help you, right? I know we live in the age now with Google and AI and all this other type stuff, right? But, it's a lot of misinformation out there. Let's make sure that we are, seeking out people who can help you develop a plan around retirement. And so here's another nugget, right? If I was going to write something down, this would be something I wrote down. Retirement is about income, not assets, right? Let's say it again. Retirement is about income, not assets. And so the more income you're going to have in retirement, the more happier your retirement is going to be, right? So I know that everybody just wants to be real estate, right? I get it. Real estate is great. But guess what real estate is not going to do when you get to retirement if you don't have those enough tenants in there to make that income keep continuing to go through? It's not going to produce the income. Then you're going to have to sell that asset. Well, what happens if it's a year like 2022 where people aren't buying? Now you're stuck with an asset. right? Because we didn't properly plan. Your only plan was, I have real estate. That can't be it, right? Now, am I saying that that's a bad thing? No. I just think that we need to have multiple applications to figure out how we're going to have income in retirement. So, running out of money is a huge concern for many retirees, but asking yourself the right questions, protecting what you value most, and figuring out and seeking options on what can provide you guaranteed income can help you with your retirement journey, period, right? And so we can kind of talk through what that looks like. Now, let's look about what a retirement breakdown looks like, right? And so in our world, we call this qualified money. So you'll hear this all the time when you're in this world, right? You'll hear the word qualified money, qualified money. What does that mean? So qualified money is anything that is governed by ERISA, which is what governs all retirement plans. So when you think about a 401k, that's a qualified plan. When you think about traditional IRAs, right, Roth IRAs, right, those are all going to be qualified money. And so let's kind of talk about the difference, right? So most people on this call have a 401k. That means that you have a retirement plan through your employer, right? You might have a 401k, you might have a 401a, 403b, 457. All of those plans are the same exact thing, just means retirement, right? It's an IRS tax code that means retirement. And so, all do the same exact thing, right? Then we have traditional IRA, which would be what they consider a pre-tax account. Then you have a Roth IRA, which is starting to kind of get a lot of buzz now. I'm starting to hear people say, hey, I need to get a Roth IRA. Hey, I need to get a Roth IRA. Well, what's the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA? Well, a Roth IRA is what they call after-tax money, meaning that I put money in, and when it comes out, it's going to come out tax-free, right? So all of the gains in that account and the money that you put in is going to come out tax-free. Now, remember this. All of these plans have this same rule. I can't touch this money till 59 and a half without being penalized, right? And so if you take it out before 59 and a half, they're going to penalize you up to 10% withdrawal penalty, early withdrawal penalty. And if it's coming out of a traditional IRA 401k, they're going to add that to your ordinary income taxes, right? So now I'm getting hit with it twice, whatever that number may be, depending on where, what your filing status is. I'm not a tax professional, so I'm not going to get into that, okay? So that is what, these type of plans work, right? So we have a traditional IRA, Roth IRA, 401k, right? You don't see on here a certificate of deposit, which is just a CD at the bank, which is basically like cash. And then you have deferred annuities, and then you have life insurance, right? And so you can kind of see what the tax implication is for all of these different plans by seeing what's on the page here. The only one that passes through all of those facets that you can get tax-free money out of, that there's no stipulation, there's no early withdrawal penalties, there's no income limits, is life insurance, right? And so you can do some cool stuff with life insurance because those IRAs, they have restrictions, income restrictions, early withdrawals, all that type of stuff, okay? So just understand that. Now, because most people have a 401k, I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about how the 401k was actually supposed to be set up, right? Most people don't realize that when a 401k was first put into place, it was actually a three-part system, right? So you had 401k, pension, and Social Security. And so what's happened over time is that companies stopped paying pensions, right? So if I did a survey on here to ask how many of you got a pension, most of you probably going to say no, right? And so think about this. If when I retired, I was supposed to have three buckets that I pulled money from, right? 401k being the main, pension, and Social Security, right? But over time, we got rid of one. And let's talk about Social Security. What's happening with Social Security right now, right? They keep pushing the age back, right? First it was 65, now it's 67. By the time I get there, it might be 70, right? I know I've seen some legislation that they're trying to change the age again. But the problem is that you have more baby boomers pulling out than you have Gen E, Gen X, Gen Z, and whatever, millennials, and whatever's after that putting in, right, into this plan. So what's going to happen? Anytime that there's not enough money, they're going to continuously push it back. So it's starting to shift what's going on here. So the question is that if this was supposed to be a three-part system and we're not funding this properly, what's going to happen? And the biggest implication on this stuff is that all of the money that went in your 401k, if it's under traditional, it's not been taxed yet. So if I ask you today, is taxes going up or down, what would you tell me, right? Regardless of where you stand politically, right? Because I'm not here to debate whether right or left is right. What I am saying is that we know that taxes are going up. So basically, I'm continuously putting money into a vehicle that I haven't paid taxes on yet. And then when I retire, I'm going to have to pay higher on. So my question to people is how much money when we get to retirement are we going to have tax-free? And if we don't have an answer for that, that's why you got to come see me, right? Because we need to know what that looks like. And then the last thing I'm going to say about this is that if I ask anybody on here, and let's put it in the chat, because I'm just curious, who can tell me what is the max amount of money that you can put in a 401k? I'm just curious to know if anybody can tell me that without Googling. Don't Google. I just want to know if you know what the max amount is as of 2024. And I'll go to the chat to kind of see what they say. Somebody said, okay, yeah, per year. Per year is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so a good dollar figure.
Yeah, so it's a dollar figure. Am I getting anything? 1 million. So we wait, and so this is part of the problem, right? Is because we don't know what these numbers are, and so it's not a percentage. And that's most of the time people come in and say that, you know, my company is matching me 3%, so that's the max that I can put in, but it's actually a number. And the number as of 2024 is $23,000 a year, right? So think about that. I can only put $23,000 in here, right? And again, this is supposed to be a three-part system. This is really, you know, we talk about a lot of crises going on, and what people aren't paying attention to is legislation is moving to blow this up. Watch, you heard this first here. Things are starting to change in this space here. So you're going to see starts at any time that either side is not complaining or fighting over it, the legislation is going to get passed, right? So just pay attention to this whole 401k space. But yeah, so 401k, we can only put 23,000. So most of the time I'm telling people is that if you're not doing anything outside of your employer, you're not going to have enough money to survive. That's the whole point of this, right? So I'm going to move on because I promise I can spend more time on this, but I won't, all right? I'm very passionate about this space, all right? So, yes, same for 403B. 403B, 401k, 401A, you know, 457, all same thing. Yep, same thing applies. All right, so one thing to think about, and I tell people all the time, is potential impacts in retirement. Yep, same thing with Roth IRA. Well, with a Roth IRA, you can actually only put $7,000 in a year. Okay, so Roth IRAs and traditional, and I'm getting questions. That's why I'm kind of veering off a little bit. But yeah, Roth IRAs and traditional IRAs, the max is $7,000. Unless you're over 50, they have a catch-up provision where you can dump in an extra $1,000, right? So you can only contribute $8,000.
There are also income limits.
And it's income limits on a Roth, right? So in the best route, I wish I could tell you that, but I don't have enough information. And I forgot to give my disclosure. Yes, I am a financial planner. All of this information is for informational purposes. If you want specific information about your specific situation, please come see me on a one-on-one basis. So I gave that disclosure so you can let compliance know. I forgot that. I'm sorry. All right. So moving on to, you know, your potential impacts. We already talked about one. People are living longer, right, because of health, et cetera, et cetera. Let's talk about inflation. Like, what is inflation? Inflation is our purchasing power. Every year we live life, prices around us get more expensive. On average, it's about 3.8. These last few years has been 7, 8, 6. Right? And we're going to talk about what that means in real life. But basically what I'm saying is prices are getting more expensive on average by 3.8%. So think about it like this. If I'm at a job and all they're giving me is a 3% raise, I'm not even keeping up with inflation. From a dollar standpoint, it looks like I'm making more money. But in reality, things around us are getting more expensive. So my salary is not keeping up with the prices that are around me. Right? So here's what I tell people. You can't save your way to wealth. We're going to get into that. That's a bar for you right there. All right, but I'm going to go follow the slide. All right, so the last thing that we have is volatility. And so what volatility is fluctuations in the market, right? And so, you know, as black people, I tell them all the time, people, I'm so scared of the market. My grandma told me to put my money under the mattress, and and I'm like, look, we don't have the luxury anymore to go to the swimming pool and just take pictures. We got to get in the pool, right? And part of being in the pool, we got to get our money in the market, because the wealth in this country was created 3 ways, right? Stock market being number 1, business number 2, and real estate being number 3, right? We need to be in all of these 3 things. Okay, so moving on. Yeah. So, last thing about retirement, and because I made this slide 2056, I wanted to give a real example of what this would look like if somebody came into our office, right? What is your distribution strategy, right? Is your savings enough for your lifetime? And so, based on this, I just use a 35-year-old male, that's me, and a salary at $100,000, and I want to retire at 67. Okay. Whoever that person is, fictitious person, I just use my age. Today's expenses, right? So you think about your housing, healthcare, personal expenses. Let's just say you're spending $6,000 a month, right? That's normal. But if I wanted to spend that same $6,000 in the year 2056, guess how much that is? $13,971. 13,971 to do the exact same thing I'm doing today. So you ask yourself, am I making the sacrifice today to be able to live tomorrow, right? That's what we got to ask ourselves. Okay? So, and I can do this for everybody. I can put in real numbers, right? I just gave a fictitious person with, fictitious salary, okay? Now, what type of options can I have to make sure that I guarantee myself some type of income, right? You got fixed annuities, you got fixed index annuities, you got variable annuity. And these are all vehicles that we can actually put money in to get you a guaranteed income, right? And so, figuring out which one of these are going to be right for you depends on, it's a lot of factors, right? But these are just vehicles that you can start to look at to figuring out how I'm going to get to that income level. All right, pillar number 3. This is what everybody loves. Investment management is pillar number 3. But instead of saying investment management, we're going to call this no savings. And so why do I say no savings? Because I gave the bar a little bit too early. You can't save your way to wealth. Here it is for you again. If your money's not working as hard as you are, you will be working for the rest of your life. Now, if you want to work for the rest of your life, that's between you and your body. Right? Now, me, I'm going to make sure I'm taking the right steps so that I don't have to. Now, if I'm working because I want to, that's completely different than working for that I have to, right? So I'm going to give you one of the most important rules about money, okay? They call this the rule of 72. And so it's like this. If I gave you $1,000 a day, and I want y'all to put back in the chat because I'm very curious, right? Because this is setting the tone again. If I gave you $1,000 today at 1%, meaning I'm receiving 1% on my money every year, how many years would it take for my money to double? Let's put it in the chat.
Repeat that again, Marcus.
Yep. If I gave you $1,000 today at 1%, how many years would it take for your money to double? That is true. Okay. All right.
Oh man, that's funny.
Till Jesus come back is what somebody said. Okay.
All right.
All right.
1,000 years.
About 1,000 years. Anybody else? 200 years. Well, look, I'm very impressed that we're at least thinking long term, right? Because sometimes I get in here and the number is 10, it's 15, and that lets me know that we have a barrier between us, because reality and what you think is completely different, right? Which is fine. I'm gonna help speed that up. But here it is. So if you don't remember anything else, remember this. It's called the rule of 72. And so basically what you do is you take the number 72 and you divide it by your interest, which is 1%, which is 72 years. So if I'm receiving 1%, it's going to take 72 years for my money to double. Why is that important? Why would I name this no savings? Because if I went to Bank of America today and I put $100,000 in Bank of America in my savings account, it's going to pay me 0.08. Remember what else we talked about? if I'm getting 0.08, I'll round it up to 1%, even though they're not giving you that, right? We getting 1%. Inflation is 3.8% on average. So I'm not even keeping up. So I'm actually losing money, right? So my money has to be in the market working for me is my whole point. We got to get that money working.
Yeah, and I can say as a former banker, and this is before the interest rates really hiked up. So at the time, the average savings account at a major bank was 0.01%. So I had clients come in complaining about, man, they only give me change every month. I'm like, what do you expect?
Yeah, that's exactly why you're seeing that 10 cent every
Exactly.
month. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, right? And so, not trying to spend too much time on this, but then they're taking that money and loaning it out back to you for 17%.
Yeah.
That's how banks make money, right? And so, but I ain't gonna spend too much time on that. But
No.
that's how banks make money. Yep, that's why you got 17 cents. All right, so we're gonna talk about the 3 places you can put your money: taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. We already kind of covered this a little bit, but I wanted to highlight this a little bit more. And so your taxable accounts will be your brokerage accounts, your business, real estate. Those are all taxable events. If you sell something in those, in those accounts, you're going to get a 1099 that's going to come that you're going to owe some type of taxes, right? Depending on what those taxes are, please always consult with your CPA. And please use a CPA and don't go to H&R Block, all right? I'm going to just throw that out there. Okay. All right. Tax deferred, 401k, 403b, 457, traditional IRA, which we covered. And then the other two that I didn't talk about on that screen was going to be a SEP IRA and a simple IRA. And those are for business owners, right? So if you're a business owner, you're S Corp LLC, single member LLC, and you want to set up a retirement plan for yourself, a SEP IRA or a simple IRA might be a good option, right? We will sit down and talk about what's going to make sense because you can actually contribute more into those type of plans than you can a 401k, and you can get some tax deductions for doing it as well. H&R guarantees it though. All right, I'm gonna leave it alone, okay? All right, so the tax-free buckets, we got the Roth IRA, life insurance, and then muni bonds, right? These are all vehicles that you can put money to and then be able to take the money out tax-free on the gains as well, right? So like I said, the big push earlier is those Roth IRAs. Utilizing life insurance as a way to build cash value is a big thing right now, but also using it the right way and not listening to social media on how to use it, right? Because there's a lot of misinformation on how these plans actually work. This is a real thing, but it's not designed the way that they're telling you on social media. So I just want to throw that out there as well. All right, so let's talk about the stock market just a little bit. And Garrison made me dial this back a lot because I was about to get into the origin of why we got to the stock market and, the first family office and why the 401k was even invented in the first place. But he said, look, that's way too much information to be giving these people on the first time you see them. That's too much, Marcus. That's all right. Let me dial back just a little bit because, I'm very passionate about this stuff. You can't tell. I've been in this business almost 12, 13 years now. So, but anyway, all right, so how does the stock market work, right? Or how do we make money off the stock market more efficiently? Because that's really what, see, some people want to know, man. You know what? I like that, right? He want to know about all that stuff.
Hey, look, we going to stick to the original intent. Let's stick to the original intent, okay?
All right, okay. All right, so, at the end of the day, people only care how they make money off this. So let's talk about it, right? So it's 2 ways that we can make money off the market. And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to what's going on right now, but, NVIDIA is at, all-time high. Apple has been trading at lows, here recently. And if you bought that Dollar General or Chipotle, you're happy right now. So it's a lot of stuff going on in the world when it comes to individual stock picking, right? I get it. All right, so first way is called capital appreciation. All right, so let's take AT&T. Again, let me throw this disclaimer out there so that my compliance officer will not be calling me with, the foolishness in the morning. I am not giving you any recommendations on any stocks to go buy, so please do not buy any of the companies that I'm referring to tonight without consulting your financial advisor. All right, it's recorded. Okay, cool. So let's take AT&T, for instance, and I think it's probably trading around $30 a share. I didn't look at it today, so I'm not sure exactly what that price is, but, let's just say it's $30 a share. So basically what that means is if I want to buy one share of AT&T, that's going to cost me $30 to buy one share. Now, what we mean by capital appreciation is if that price goes from 30 to 35 and I sell it, now I just made money off that stock, right? But the only way that I make money here is if I sell it. So it works the same way in reverse. If I buy it for 30 and it goes to 25 and I do nothing, did I lose money? No, I didn't lose money until I sell it. So the only way you lose money in the stock market is when you get fearful and you let your emotions take over. So a lot of times, I don't even call myself a financial planner. I normally say I am an emotional coach. I help you to regulate your emotions. That's what I really do, right? Because you're going to be scared because you've seen CNN and everybody else have all the headlines that the world's coming to an end tomorrow. And it never does, right? It always goes back the other way. All right, so capital appreciation being the first way. The second way is called a dividend. And so what a dividend is a cash payment to that investor for investing into that company. So let's take AT&T for instance. Right now, I think they're paying about a 6% dividend. So think about it like this, and I'm just using this for simple math. If I put $10,000 into AT&T and they're paying me a 6% dividend, they're paying me $600 a year just for investing into AT&T. The combination of that dividend and capital appreciation is how we make money off stocks. Now, I will tell you that some companies don't pay dividends because they say, why would we give that money to the investors when we can take that money back and put it into our company, which is going to help boost our stock price? An example of that would be Apple, Nvidia, Google, Facebook, right? So a lot of these tech companies are not paying dividends. They're reinvesting it back into the stock prices, which is why you're seeing it. And so I would say, a good starting point to start to understand what the market is doing, start looking at the S&P 500, which is 500 companies, right? So you'll either hear the S&P 500 or you'll hear the Dow Jones, right? The difference between the two is the Dow Jones is only 30 companies, the S&P is 500. So you tell me which one is a better indicator on what's going on, right? All right, so the question is, what about hedge funds? Right? Hedge fund is just it's basically a company that takes your money to invest for you and do very complicated investment strategies, right? So they're buying all different types of things. And number one, in order to be in a hedge fund, first thing you need to be is what they call a qualified investor. So if you don't have a net worth of at least 1.5 million and 500,000 of investable assets, we're not talking to you about no hedge fund. And number one, so that's number one. And that's just the baseline. And so, they don't even really want you at 1.5 and 500. And then they're going to take a 2% management fee and 20% of your profits. Nobody talks about that either. They take a 2 and 20. And they're going to lock your money up for years. So this ain't no, let me put my 500,000, I'm going to come back next year and you're going to get it back out. That's not how the hedge funds work. There's a lockup period. You putting that money in there 5-10 years. I remember when 2008 was happening, one of the biggest hedge funds, Citadel, you probably heard of Citadel Securities, right? They had a mandate with Ken Griffin. He's moving all his stuff from Chicago to Miami. I don't know if y'all paying attention to the headlines on what's going on with that, but that's a whole other thing. He had put in there, ain't nobody taking no money out. So just imagine what 2008 looked like for you. Just go back to 2008, right, with this housing crisis, right, and all that stuff. And he was like, you ain't taking your money out, right? It's locked up. Think about how that's going to make you feel. Right? So for hedge funds, that's going to be for a very sophisticated investor who understands the risk that he's taking on. For most people, doing it, the more traditional way is going to be, a better option for you. So I'll leave it at that because I can go on a tangent on that as well. That's true. All right, so I'm going to let Garrison take this part, and we're going to call pillar number 4 insurance, but instead of calling it insurance, we're going to say cover your assets.
CYA. So once again, we talked about the investment part. We talked about acquiring wealth, but now let's talk about the protection of it. A lot of times, really I got a question. I guess we go for the chat real quick, but what is the easiest form of generational wealth? Put in the chat. I'm just curious to see what y'all say. Okay. Anybody else? So the reason why I say that because we talk about real estate, right? Has anyone ever had to deal with real estate in the event that someone passed away? Because I can tell you examples of what I've seen. So, I used to work at a bank. Person passed away. They left my house to siblings. Some lived here, some lived elsewhere, right? So they all have equal ownership. But guess what? One sibling want to sell it, the other one don't. So now we're at a stalemate. Either you're going to buy out their interest, or it's just going to sit there. So when it comes to life insurance, one is tax free. Like, you can get that money tax free. You got Uncle Sam. You just get the money. You can have it set up different ways. You get a lump sum. You can have scheduled payments. And also just think about just the legacy. Last year, one of our frat brothers, he passed away, but he left us a gift, $20,000, and it wasn't expected, but we definitely took it, and that was a lot easier than just giving us like a house or something. Because honestly, I call real estate dirty money. You got to get your hands dirty. There's so many factors. I got a client who their house was listed a year and a half ago. It still ain't sell yet, right? So a lot of times we ain't got time to wait for the other factors to happen. So,
and just to add to that, in the real estate piece, it really works well when you're doing it in multiples, right? And so I think that number is 10. If you got 10 rental properties, now you're talking about something, right? But until you get to that number 10 on the rental property side, because most times that's what you're looking for, short-term rentals, and you're trying to take the income of that. That's the big thing right now. But until what I've seen through all of our real estate guys as clients, that number is about 10. So if all you have is one rental and you're only making, a couple $100 that you ain't even paid taxes on, is it really worth it? Where you can go sell that property, take the cash, and put it into the market where it's liquid, right? And so that's a whole nother conversation to start to think about. But with this is like always asking yourself, because there's so many things that you can do with that life insurance, between accumulation, leaving a legacy, distribution, and it's stuff that you can use yourself. So it's not just about passing it on to the next person. It's also about how can you benefit from some of the benefits from it as well. So.
And also, insurance as well. Of course, life insurance is the most popular, but income protection, we're gonna touch on that for a quick second. Of course, long-term care, which we talked about. Well, insurance is the important piece, because when you talk about building wealth, you gotta protect it. Okay.
Yeah.
So why am I buying life insurance? Once again, you gotta protect your assets. If you got a mortgage, income, outstanding debt, that's why you need life insurance, because nothing is guaranteed. I mean, we see the news headlines every day. I get news alerts. Somebody dying every hour or so. And especially if you're married, you owe it to your family. Do you want to leave them with the bill? And the question I ask is, how important is your family to you? A lot of times in the Black community, and this is, once again, we got to change our mindset. Is oftentimes, and it breaks my heart, I hear when it comes to leaving people money, the common response is, well, they don't need all that. I worked hard for my money. They can work hard for theirs too. I kid you not.
Always a step behind.
We gotta change the mindset, right? Just a quick story. It was this guy I met. He was a white guy. Came to Nashville. I asked him what he do. He said nothing. I said, what do you mean? His grandfather passed away a couple years ago, left him a huge life insurance policy. So now that gives him the freedom to just do what he want to do. Instead of being selfish and saying, well, he can figure it out. Let him, work hard. I'll tell people, at your funeral, there's no U-Haul attached to the back. You can't take it with you.
And the sign of a good man is saying is when he can leave an inheritance to his children's children, right? And so I know the good book talks about that a lot. And so we definitely want, especially if we start to talk about how do we close the generational gap or the wealth gap between us and the others. Right now, this ain't gonna be the only thing that we should be doing, but this is definitely gonna help kind of give you a leg up with making that happen. Because you think about this, man. I used to say all the time, especially when we was talking about around the time that George Floyd was killed, and I was just wondering if all of, these black men had $1 million policies on themselves, would the police still be killing us? Just think about with every family what $1 million would do and change the trajectory, especially if we get the million and we understand how money works and how money moves, on what we can do with enhancing, the fruits of our labor in that regard. So, this is a very, very important piece that we should definitely address, especially because there's more than one thing that you can do with your life insurance. And so that's the part that I always try to make people understand. It's just not about you passing away. There's stuff that we can do with it in today as well. So, absolutely. Change a lot. Yep. So we gonna cover a couple of different things, and then we're gonna wrap it up with the last pillar.
Yeah, a lot of times people hear terms, whole life or permanent. Which is better? Which one do I need? Should I have both? So honestly, that question is depending on your particular situation. As a matter of fact, you can do both.
Yep. I tell people, just to throw this in there, I get asked this question all the time. What is the best insurance to have? And the one I say, the best insurance to have is the one you have in force when you pass away. So tell me the date you're going to die. Let's make sure we have that one, right? And so, that's the one you need, right? Like, it also, you just got to ask your question, what do I want it to do? That is the most important question. Do I want this to be inherited? Do I want this to accumulate wealth? Do I want this to do both things, right? And you can do a combination of both. And so, just sitting down with your advisor, hopefully at Johnson Capital, they can help you out and figure out what that's going to be for you.
I see insurance for self and older adults. So I actually do specialize in the senior community. I do sell senior supplemental benefits. So we do final expense policies, things like that. Because as you know, the older you get, the harder it is going to be to qualify for life insurance. Because really, just investing in general is not really about how much, but when. I myself took out insurance now because I know it's going to be cheaper now versus later, because you don't want to wait till later because you just never know what can happen. Because there's a thing called pre-existing conditions that can lock you out of even getting it, right? So just keep that in mind as well. And also, we insure our cars, cell phones, but the last thing we do is insure ourselves. Why is that?
And the last thing I would say about this is not to make this a whole thing about, just sticking on the life insurance portion, but the one thing I tell people is that we need to have this outside our jobs, right? Because people will come in and they'll say, look, I got this through my employer, I'm good. I hear this all the time, I'm good. I don't need that. I'm like, okay, what happens when they lay you off? Or you quit? Or you get tired of them? Right? And of course, nobody wants to think about it in that context, but wake up. Let's look at the headlines. Yep. Right? Every day I'm reading a journal, it's another company laying off people left and right. And guess what happens to those benefits when you're no longer there? These companies don't care, right? They will plug and place you with somebody else at a cheaper cost any day. So we got to take our own matters in our own hands.
And just how life works. Let's say, you get laid off, start a new job, there's a thing called a probationary period. What happens, normally it's like 90 days. If you die within day 70, you're not covered. So it's best to take matters in your own hands, because when you get life insurance outside of work, it's always going to be constant. You can avoid gaps. And honestly, I just want to put all my trust in the company.
Absolutely not. All right, moving on. All right, so this kind of talks about another protection strategy. I call it income protection, right? Other people call it disability. But, having a plan for that as well, right? Making sure that in the event that you got sick or hurt, you're able to make sure that you're still able to pay your bills, right? Now, of course, we want to make sure that we have adequate savings that we're able to cover in the event that we couldn't be there. But let's add a little buffer here, right? Let's look at doing a short-term policy. Let's look at doing a long-term policy. Figuring out which one is going to make sense for you, because the last thing you want is to be sick or injured and not have enough capital to be able to sustain your life. Now, a study came out in Advisorpedia a couple years ago that said 70% of Americans don't have $1,000 to cover an emergency. And that just was crazy to me, right? And so just think about that, right? And so now I think about it in today's terms, where credit card debt is in the trillions, right? We got to start paying attention to the headlines that matters, right? And so what's going to start happening to that debt, right? And what happens if, I'm living off my credit cards and then I get injured? How are we going to be able to afford this stuff? So we need to make sure that we got a plan in place for this as well.
I see company group insurance is much cheaper So if they with company insurance as well, Brother Williams, sometimes it might not be enough.
And that's generally what happens with the company insurance. You don't have, it's probably not enough to maintain what you're wanting to maintain, unless you know it's one of them situations. Look, I just want to make sure that if in the event something happened to me, I just take care of myself. And hopefully that's not what you're saying. But we want to make sure that especially if generational wealth is what we're trying to acquire to, that we have enough adequate amount, because you're probably not going to have enough coming through the coverage at work. So doing a group plan is always going to be cheaper because there's no underwriting, right? So that's why it's cheaper, because you don't have any underwriting. So it's you're going through a group plan. But again, if you get laid off, now what, right? So I'm not telling you not to impart in your group plan. Yeah, do it, right? But I'm saying you have some stuff on your own. It's definitely going to be a good situation for you to have. So last pillar, we call this estate planning. And instead of calling this estate planning, we're going to call it draw two. And I know you're like, what does draw two mean? I don't know if anybody on here plays Uno, but what is the most crazy thing going on Uno right now? What's the conversation about? If I'm able to keep drawing those two, generation to generation, right? Think about it, from two to two to two. It was, right, Uno. Exactly. So we're calling this draw two. How are we able to move this money from generation to generation to generation? Right? And so the first thing we need to start thinking about is do we have a will? Right? If everybody on this call don't have a will, we need to have a conversation. Right? Because you need to have one of those. The other thing, trust. Right? I've seen that on here. But a lot of times people come in here and they want to do a trust, but then they don't fund it. So what's the point of having a trust if you don't fund it? Right? And the other question is how do we fund it? Right? And then what type of trust? Because there's multiple trusts that we can have. And so, you talk about having these properties. If you got real estate and you're not deeding your property into that trust, now it's got to go through probate. Think about how long it's going to be stuck in probate court trying to be able to do whatever you want to do. So having a plan around that is going to be perfect. And all of us know that, as our parents age, right, having a power of attorney over them so we can get the stuff done that we need to do, and on ourselves as well, right? Because I want to make sure that if something were to happen to me, that my wife and then maybe my daughter, as I get older, will be able to, have that financial and healthcare power of attorney so that they can make decisions on our lives. And so, those are, important documents that and I didn't want to spend too much time on this because we're not attorneys, but we can generate this for you. But we wanted to make sure that you're aware of some of these things that you can have kind of in-house.
Yeah, and keeping it like real world terms, especially today, I'm pretty sure y'all heard of the Wendy Williams.
Oh, yeah.
That's literally a state issue, like you have people making decisions, that aren't necessarily favorable. So just want to make sure you get in front of that to avoid things like that.
And had she had the right people in her place, she would already had a plan around it. If something were to happen to her, she would have the right people appointed, so you don't have the bank coming in here telling me what I can and can't do with my money, right? I think it's just crazy to me. But again, we can learn from other people's mistakes, right? Instead of laughing at them, let's learn from their mistakes, right? I don't think it's funny. I just think that it's improper that she didn't have the right people around her to make sure that she's making the right decisions with her money. So, again, thank you for having us. We look forward to, building with you guys. Right here, you can click that link that will take you right to us if you want to book a time to talk to us one-on-one. And now we just want to kind of open it up for questions that you might have that, you want to get answered.
Someone have to make a certain amount of money to take advantage of it.
So I'm not going to say that they have to make a certain amount, but I will say this: I can't multiply zeros, right? So if you come in here and you don't have an income, there's nothing we can do for you. I want to help as much people as I can, right? I want to give you all the information, right? But if you don't have an income stream that you're able to start capitalizing on what you want your money to do, then it's going to be hard for us. But again, when it comes to this stuff, you got to make a sacrifice, right? So either you're going to do it today or you're going to be messed up tomorrow, right? Because the last thing I want you to do is to not talk to us because you don't think you make enough money. Because it's not about how much you make, it's about what you keep. And then what you're doing with what you keep it, right? And it's just not sitting and saving. So, I'm not going to put a hard number on it, but I will say we want serious people who are ready to do serious things with their money.
And especially the senior members of the church, I deal with Medicare as well, so I know that can be an overwhelming task, but I'm pretty well versed in that as well.
I have
Anything
a question.
else? Yep.
Yes. I was going to ask about retirement, I know that most people say that you could get to 30, but because of the age, because I'm actually at year 26, and will I be able to, and I know you're not looking at our money, but if, like, when I get to 30, is there a way that I'll still be able to get retirement, or is it with, I heard you talk about the age, that I have to be the age, so then that means that even when I get to 30, oh well, I just got to keep going until I get to that age number.
Yeah, so they do have this thing called 72T, and I'm not gonna go too deep into that, but 72T actually allows you to take money out before you turn the age of 59 and a half. But it also depends on what your plan governance said. So every plan is going to have rules and stipulations on what you can do and not do with your money. So, I'll have to look at your plan and then decide, what that is. Because you could be at a place where you can do what they call an in-service rollover. There's so many options that you can look at. It just depends on what that plan governor says. And so that would be a one-on-one that I can sit down and help you figure out what that looks like for you.
Okay.
Is it a good idea for me to draw my Social Security at age 62 rather than 67?
That's a great question. We get asked that all the time, right? And so the dilemma is that, if I wait, what happens if I wait and then I pass away, right? What I will tell you is that, by taking it early, you are leaving money on the table, because technically the full retirement age is 67, right? And so what we could do, that we could sit down and do a Social Security analysis with you to figure out when is going to be the best year based on your situation. And it also figures out, okay, what other assets do I have that I can start utilizing so I can wait to get the full benefit from my Social Security. And so we'll figure out, what that bridge looks like, what that gap looks like, to be able to, kind of get you into that.
Marcus, Garrison, I've got a question for someone who wants to try to take advantage of, I guess, coming to you guys. Is there some prep work that they should do? I know you guys start off with the first pillar, really dealing with, income and outgo. Is there some things that they can do to kind of, get to have these conversations with you? I asked the question about the amount of money. People tend to think, like, if they don't make an astronomical amount in their salary or their income, that, man, this is not for me. But I seem to think, like, if you make $40,000, like, do well what you have. So is there something they can do to prepare to have those?
Yes. So I would say, my original intent for every household is to have a financial plan, right? So when people go out and they say, look, I want to start a business, I want to do X, Y, and Z, they always going to sit down and do a business plan. Well, I'm saying I think every household needs a financial plan, and that's where we would start, right? And so that's not going to cost you a whole lot of money to come in and do a financial plan. Well, we'll sit down together and go over those intangible things, right? Kind of create that PFS, which is that personal financial statement, kind of look at that snapshot of where you are today, where you're trying to go, specifically with your goals. And it's all customizable towards whoever we're talking to, right? Because everybody is not going to be wanting to do the same thing, right? Everybody's trajectory is not going to be the same, right? So when you come in, we're looking at, what your expenses are. How much debt do you have? What is your, debt to income ratio? What is those interest rates on those credit cards, right? How do we make all of this stuff work first before we start getting into, what I call the circle of wealth, what I didn't talk about tonight because I didn't have enough time, but, we will start there. So everybody can see us, right? It's just, how dedicated are you to wanting to, kind of get to that next level, and what sacrifices are you willing to make today so that you can live better tomorrow?
That's good. Thank you.
Fellas, I'm about to catch in. Oh, go ahead.
So, what do you do for people who are already retired?
Yeah, so with people who are already retired, we'll do a peek and see what your income looks like. Are you satisfied with the income that you're getting? And where are your assets located, to kind of build a distribution plan so that you can become more comfortable, right? Because every advisor in this city is going to talk to you about wealth accumulation. I don't care who you go talk to, right? Everybody wants to talk about that, right? But what makes us different is that we have an actual plan around the distribution, right? How are we taking that money out? What vehicles are we going to be taking that money out? How much guaranteed money are you already getting? And making sure that we don't run out of money based on what you've already done. Doing an analysis on your Medicare, right? Have you already started taking that, right? Can we save you some money there, right? Do we got a plan for this long-term care? Is it too late for me, right? And that's all the stuff that we can do around, people that's already retired. Matter of fact, we spend a lot of deal in that space, is helping people that's already retired, kind of make their situation a little bit better. reason you're good, I'll tell you, right? I'll say, look, there's no need for me to come in here and make any changes. Everything looks good to me, right? And, do we deal with HSAs? No, that's more so. Go ahead.
I have a question regarding the last question. So I just saw a movie called Dilemma, and Dilemma talks about the baby boomers and how a lot of people, just pulled out money because somebody said, take this lump sum, don't do the gradual long-term thing. And we're able to retire a lot younger now. However, it talked about annuities big time. That's what it was really focused on. But my question is, as a retiree, and I had 25, 30 years over a career. How quick will that annuity, if I put some money into it now, grow enough for me to see it? Or is it not for me to see? It might be a legacy thing as well.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question, right? And so I would say there's actually two parts to that. So number one, if I'm pulling the money out, you should already be at a space where now I'm trying to take income of it, not trying to grow the money. So those are two different things, right? So am I trying to take an income from this, or am I trying to grow it? And a lot of times those two things don't coincide when we start talking about an annuity. So usually when we start talking to say, all right, I'm going to take this lump sum of money and I'm going to go into annuity. That annuity is basically a contract between you and the insurance company saying they're going to give you a certain amount of money for the rest of your life, right? And then if you pass away, there could be a benefit that's going to go on to your beneficiary, right? And so if we take that a little bit premature, you could be leaving some money on the table. Like right now, right, the markets are doing well. So if we would took that money out, a little premature, we could have been leaving money on the table that we could have been benefiting to actually make that money grow. So the real question is do I want an income, or am I trying to grow, right? So that's where we really will be having that conversation about, because they're doing two different things.
Okay, and I have a second question. I apologize.
Yeah.
So I just qualified for a HELOC, and I've never taken any money out of my home. I've been in it for since 2007. What is that, 17 years? So I'm scared to death on what they telling me I can have online. So
yeah, it depends on what you want to do with that HELOC. And I think if I'm going to take money out, I'm going to do the HELOC with you. If you don't know what that is, that's a home equity line of credit. So basically what that's saying is that now instead of taking this money out and I'm getting it all at once, I'm only pinching off of what I need. So it's a line of credit. So it's going to be there. So if I need to get cash and access to cash, now I can take it out as a line of credit versus taking all the money out at one time. So, those strategies, same home equity lines of credit or margin loans or security-based lending, these are all great strategies if we have a plan on what we want our money to do, right? But if we're just going to take it out because we want to go buy the new Gucci's and a new car, I'm going to tell you, no, that don't make no sense, right? Why are we doing that? Like, we're not doing that. We don't ball out and go to do all that stuff. No, right? Because now you're creating debt. But if we're saying, all right, I'm going to take this out because I got an investment, an investment that's vetted, right? Not just, Pookie's new restaurant that he's trying to open up that he ain't got a plan for, but like a real investment or, real estate or something like that, then it would make sense to do. But I would also tell people that, having a margin account, if you don't know what that is, then you definitely need to come see us, because that's something that our community is just not participating in enough. But there are some great things that you can do in that as well.
And even just real quick, even when I used to work at the bank, typically, we would encourage people who were thinking about retiring or close to retirement to do the home equity line of credit, just so they can have access to capital.
Because you don't have to use it.
Right. Typically nowadays, there's no origination cost. There's no cost just to have it. So it's always good to have it and not need it versus need it, not have it. Because the worst thing that you can do is, something comes up and then you have to pull from some sort of investment, especially in retirement, versus where you can draw from another source.
Yeah, because, that's one thing that I've seen in our community that's lacking a lot is liquidity, right? I'm starting to see, a lot of us are in the real estate side. And I'm not trying to pick on real estate because it's not like I don't have it too, right? But the problem is that when we dive in, we're all the way in, right? And that's what we're going to do. And so we don't want to diversify. And so the issue is that if all my cash is in there, what happens when I need money, when I need access? And what if I don't qualify for a home equity line of credit because my DTI is off at the time that I need cash, right? Because I'm on this flip, right? So there's so many variables that can kind of go in, and there's other things that we can kind of do.
And the last point with the home equity line of credit is kind of spooky. is I used to encourage people before they retire to get one because your income's gonna change.
That's true.
So you can't get 100,000 and you're only bringing in 40 versus when you're making 60, 80, or 100. So it's best to do it when you are having a higher income.
Cash flow positive is what we say.
Versus, retiring in, because I had clients where they got mad because they wanted to, redo their HELOC, but they couldn't get as much. So I'm like, well, yeah, you made 120 10 years ago. Now you're making only 40. So.
And the last thing I'm gonna say about this too is, please, I mean, it's your money. You can do what you want, but as a financial professional, one of the things I try to urge retirees not to do is to try to take on a home rental product as soon as you get ready to retire. Why are you doing that right now? You're spending money to do this home renovation in the same year that you're retiring. You're gonna start running out of money.
Yeah. Seen that a lot.
I'm gonna leave that alone though, because I don't want to. Never mind.
I think I definitely had a question.
Thank you.
So I'm currently streaming. Yeah, well, obviously we all know I'm streaming. So I had a quick question for y'all. Is the 50-20-30 rule, is that still a thing in this economy? Because I feel like even like right now, like just as a worker, in this world, just trying to make it and do what they need to do, I feel like that's still not enough to continue to navigate through life. And Marcus, I think you even said it, like with the way the economy is going and whether you get a 3.5 increase or not, like it's kind of not giving you that grace to continue to live based off of how inflation and all that stuff is going. So I just wanted to get y'all's perspective. Is the 50-20-30 rule still a thing, or has that increased? Is it more of a 75% and then you got the little trinkets at the end? Like, what does that look like for y'all as financial advisors?
Yeah, so I'm be honest with you. I hate subscribing to these rules that people try to put on themselves about what that percentage, because most people never do it. So it's like you almost setting yourself up, right? And so generally what I tell people to do is like let's peel back the curtains, right? Let's actually get to the root of the issue. And so let's figure out, all right, am I really living above my means, right? Am I trying to do too many things at the same time? Am I trying to, subscribe to Instagram and look at everybody's highlight because everybody is now debt-free and an entrepreneur and we have all of this money and all of these things, right? And so I think that aids to, especially on the millennials and, whatever the people is under that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the real thing is kind of really identify when was the last time you really just sat down and looked at what's coming in and what's going out and what expenses are you wasting? Like, how many times a week have you wasted money on DoorDash? Right? How many times a week have you wasted money on Amazon orders? Right? I promise you, every other day I'm seeing an Amazon order come to my house and I'm like, I ain't bought nothing, so who is it? Right? Right? So you gotta ask yourself what's important. What is the most important thing to you? And so then we can start kind of creating some parameters around what's important to you versus trying to live up to this, this fake rule about what I'm gonna do with my money, because most people don't do it. I hope that answers the question. I'm not trying to throw no shots at nobody.
Nah, it does, but at the same time, like, I just want to make sure, like, I'm growing with, because I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm going to be transparent. This is the most I've ever made in a job since I left TSU, which, shout out to both y'all. Love y'all. This is the most money I've ever made at this very point in my life. So it's just kind of like I'm just trying to set myself up for in the next 5 years to, like, just be able to live simply comfortably, even outside of any passive income or any entrepreneurship that I might have in me. I just want to be sure that, like, what's coming from the actual, like, actual income is doing what it needs to do.
You need to come see us. That's what you need to do. We're gonna get you on the plan.
Say less.
That's what you're gonna need to do. I'm seeing stuff in here about crypto, and all that stuff. I can kind of touch on that, but yeah, come see us. We'll get you on the right plan, and that way you can look at everything, from a high level lens, and then start to kind of get, more granular.
Marcus, can I tap in here, man? And let me say, guys, this is what this is designed to do. Everybody's got some real questions, and I know everybody's situation is different, but as pastor, and I'm thinking kingdom, I recognize that it's hard for you to value add financially to kingdom efforts when you're struggling to live life or misappropriating life, you know what I mean, financially. And so this helps us restructure in a way, and I'm an advocate for Marcus and Garrison. Certainly, there's other people you can go see. But let's get into a place where we at first acknowledge, right? You got to acknowledge I need help trying to navigate financially through this economic, right, situation in life, right, where we are. And I think, especially in the Black community, it's become crisis, right? We have afforded things that have no value, that are not centered to evolving life or even sustaining life. And so re-galvanizing, reappropriating, like I think Garrison said, shifting, right, our mindset about what our money should do. And then I love the word that Marcus gave, letting our money work for us. That's a thing for me and Mama. We got money sitting in the bank, but we get them, $8 at the end of the year. You know what I mean? It's like, really? Couldn't that do something? Couldn't that serve us better if it's it's doing some work that's beneficial for us versus they just holding on and really using our money against us is kind of what it becomes in the long run. So I'm making a push. This is a concerted effort for STBF and those beyond. I hope we got some folks that have tapped in, beyond our fellowship. Let's get our money game together. Let's be smarter with the coins we have. And it doesn't matter whether you're making $40,000 or $400,000. Let's make our money have an impact, right, in our lives and in kingdom.
Absolutely.
One of the things, I'm heavily in real estate. I'm heavily in, the financial side of things. One of the things I've learned, and I wish I learned a lot earlier, is just how valuable coaches or advisors and things like that are. I feel like the Black community, I don't know. I feel like Jesus is our advisor, and no, he's our savior, not our advisor. It's a big difference. So I just wanted to say that because, like, anything that you wanted to do, like almost anything, like LeBron needed a coach, right? Like everybody needs a coach. We don't like being coached for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. I was that person, but I'm seeing it now, and our counterparts do not have that problem. They don't.
Nah.
Yeah, I think it's
back to
ignorance,
the
man.
origin of all this stuff was started, right? But he didn't want me to talk about that, so I'll say that for the next one, about the origin of why this is the way it is, right? But we'll say that for the next one.
We'll bring you guys back. I want to say thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Garrison. Come on, let's clap it up, snap it up. I know we're on mute, but let's celebrate them. And let's not just have this as a fireside chat, right? Let's be intentional in the days coming to schedule some time. If you can, put your information back up, right. QR code back up, just in case people want to, grab your information. And reach out. I want us to be empowered. One of the things that I gave a forecast for our ministry at the top of the year, right? Me and my wife gave a forecast, and this is one of the things that's a part of that forecast is that we become, more astute as stewards. We gotta manage our stewardship better. And again, while stewardship is not just money, it certainly includes, right, our financial aptitude to move in this sector of economy. So I'm excited, to partner with you guys, and I pray that most of those who have watched tonight see the value and also see you guys' knowledge base. You have brought some valuable tools to the table, giving us some wonderful insight. I've kind of got me a play-by-play, but it's on Facebook Live, it's on YouTube Live. So if you want to go back and catch some of those notes and get some of the diagrams, I encourage you to do that, but also go and meet with Johnson Capital Planning. See Marcus, see Garrison, and allow them to really pour and set some foundation, not just for where you are now. And that's what I'm most encouraged by, that they gave us some opportunities to see down the road, right? Tomorrow is coming, and you can't prepare for tomorrow. So let's do our dead level best to prep for what's on the way right now. So thank y'all. You can pull pull that down for me. Thank y'all so much for sharing your information, sharing your time, your talent, and your treasure with our fellowship and those who will tap in across the globe. I believe there are folks tapping in from all over. And so I have great intentionality with this. I expect our financial game to be different. I expect us to be in a better space with our monies in the days to come. So thank y'all so much. I'm going to pray. Do we have any final questions before we dismiss? Don't want to hold y'all all night there. Any other final questions before we jump off of here? Amen. Listen, if you don't get a chance to share this out, send somebody their way so that they really can help our community, help our people, and help us. We should be in a different financial space by this time next year. Now, we're going to bring them back before then, right, to dive deeper and to really look at some things more specifically. Maybe we'll have just a night that talks about life insurance, because I think all of our parishioners, all of our people need to have the insurance, right? If you ain't got nothing else, get covered, right? So simple things like that. We need to have a wheel night, right? So we'll look at bringing them on another basis on a couple times throughout the year, and so that they can really empower us and help us get to that place. Let's pray. God, we thank you for this opportunity that you are encouraging us in our spirits and our minds and our will and intellect, God, to be prepared financially. You have given us the opportunities through gifting, God, through education, through occupation, to receive wealth, God. And we know you own everything. So, God, while we're connected to your hand and you've given us access to everything, make us great stewards. Allow us, God, to see it the way you designed, and for us to do the proper things with every seed that you give us. Now, God, we thank you that we will see change. We think we'll be a part of change, and that we'll celebrate you for this enlightenment. We'll celebrate you for shifting our trajectory. We'll celebrate you because we're in better shape to live now and tomorrow. Thank you, God, for these vessels. Pour back into them, pour into their business, and we just give you glory for what their lives will look like as a result of lending their gifts to us and sharing this info with us. Have your way is our prayer. It is in Jesus' name we pray and we praise. Amen. Love y'all. Love y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Can't wait to see y'all Sunday.